She pressed play and suddenly her world cracked open. Bleeding raw truth. On the screen, a betrayal unfolded silently, mercilessly. A man she trusted, a woman she'd never suspected, tangled in shadows. Her fingers shook, gripping the table edge until her knuckles turned white. Breath shallow and strained, heart hammering like gunfire in her chest. Everything she believed shattered. Outside, San Francisco glittered indifferently, a city blind to the quiet violence erupting within her home. Her hand gently moved to cradle her swollen belly, promising protection even as her heart hardened into something colder, stronger. A single whisper escaped her lips, loaded with quiet rage. "You're going to regret this." And deep inside her, something dark and determined woke up, ready for war. Claire Whitmore's hand trembled as she hovered over the computer mouse. Her breathing was shallow, her heart pounding in her ears. On the screen before her, a video file labeled Living Room Cam 02 blinked expectantly. She shouldn't be watching this. She had every reason to walk away, to hold on to some semblance of hope. But that single second, her gut screaming that something was deeply wrong had grown too large to ignore. Click. The speakers roared to life. At first, where the image was shaky, a little pixelated, but soon it sharpened into an unmistakable scene. The open layout of her own penthouse living room. Tall windows framed the San Francisco skyline. $1 million view her husband Daniel had loved to show off. And there he was, Daniel Whitmore, her husband of 6 years embracing another woman. Hands roamed, lips locked in passion. The woman's long auburn hair cascaded over her shoulders as she pulled Daniel closer. Claire's breath caught in her throat. It felt like an out-of-body experience. The camera angle tilted just enough to catch the reflection of Daniel's face in the glass. He was smiling, murmuring something into the woman's ear. Claire's eyes flicked down to the subtitles on the screen as the hidden microphone picked up snatches of conversation. She heard her own name, heard Daniel laugh when the woman teased him about his pregnant wife. "Claire," Daniel said with a carefree chuckle, "will never suspect a thing." And that was when the tears started to flow silent, hot, unrelenting. She pressed a hand against her 7 months pregnant belly. The baby kicked, as if aware of the mother's distress. In that moment, something hardened inside Claire. Shock fused with heartbreak, turning into a cold, calculated resolve. This was beyond a typical marital betrayal. This was Daniel's complete disregard for her well-being. She paused the video. The final frame froze on Daniel's triumphant grin, a smugness that made her stomach churn. She took a steadying breath, pressed play again. The moans and gasps filled the living room, the sound echoing off the minimalist walls. Suddenly, the feed cut. Maybe the camera software timed out, or the memory card got full, but the damage was done. Claire closed her laptop. She stared out at the city lights for a long moment, tears drying on her cheeks. 10 years ago, she was an award-winning documentary filmmaker, ferociously independent. She had never imagined she would give up her career or her identity for a marriage. Yet here she was, pregnant, betrayed, and financially dependent on the man she had once considered her soulmate. Rising from her desk, Claire smoothed her black maternity dress and steadied herself. No more illusions. No more believing everything was fine. She knew Daniel was playing a dangerous game, one that involved more than just illicit bedroom trysts. His technology company, newly minted and on the verge of a massive IPO, had turned him into a public darling. Everyone saw him as the perfect husband, the future father, the visionary CEO. Claire inhaled sharply. She wanted to scream, but something inside her was cooler, calmer, almost numb. She clicked on the second file that read, Kitchen Cam 01. The same pair, a different day, the same betrayal. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak. She felt them swirl into one single, unbreakable determination. She was done being the oblivious, doting wife. One final glance at Daniel's face on the paused video. She whispered, "You're going to pay, Daniel." She pressed a protective hand on her belly. And I won't let you take me down with you. The screen went black. Early the next morning, the sun rays crept through the penthouse windows. San Francisco's iconic fog drifted in the distance. Claire stepped into the kitchen with puffy eyes that had not known restful sleep. She took a seat at the marble island, staring at the once prized coffee machine Daniel had bought for her last birthday. How sweet he had been then. How convincing. She recalled a recent moment at a charity gala. Daniel had graciously wrapped an arm around her waist and told the crowd, "My wife is my hero. She's carrying our future." The audience applauded, and Claire felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Now she knew it had all been a performance, a veneer. Her mother, Martha Grayson, pushed open the front door, grocery bags in hand. At 65, Martha still possessed a lively step. She had served as a nurse for decades before retirement, and she was attuned to every micro-expression on her daughter's face. "Claire, sweetheart," Martha said, crossing the kitchen threshold. "You look awful. Are you feeling all right?" Claire managed a tight smile. "Couldn't sleep." Martha's gaze flicked to Claire's stomach. "Is it the baby? You should be extra careful. Stress isn't good for either of you." Claire didn't trust herself to speak. The truth was on the tip of her tongue. She wanted to spill everything: the affair, the hidden recordings, the humiliation. But fear clamped her mouth shut. Part of her was terrified that Martha would confirm her worst suspicions. Daniel was never the paragon of virtue he pretended to be. The door opened again, revealing Daniel with a casual grin plastered on his face. He was dressed in a tailored suit, tie loosened, hair impeccably styled. "Good morning, mountain ladies," he said, placing a kiss on Claire's cheek. He lingered a second too long, as if overcompensating. Martha's expression soured, her eyes narrowing. "Morning," Claire said tersely. She recalled a snippet from the video. Claire will never suspect a thing. The words stung, echoing in her mind. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I have an early board meeting, so I'll be out for most of the day. Are you two going to be all right?" The question sounded more rhetorical than concerned. Martha busied herself wiping down the counter, refusing to answer. Claire remained silent. Daniel's eyes flicked from mother to daughter, perhaps sensing an undercurrent of tension. Quickly, he smoothed it over with his polished CEO bravado. "I'll catch up with you both at dinner. Take care." "Okay." With that, he headed out. The door closed. The hush that followed was thick with unspoken truth. Finally, Martha turned to Claire. "I want you to speak to me. You've been too quiet lately." Claire's eyes shone with unshed tears. "It's complicated, Mom." "It always is," Martha replied gently. "But sometimes a person can be complicated and still be a liar or a manipulator." Claire was about to answer, but a vibrating phone interrupted her. The caller ID read Eli Masters, an old college friend, now a successful tech lawyer in Silicon Valley. She hadn't heard from him in months. She pressed the phone to her ear. "Claire," Eli said softly, "I heard some rumors about Daniel." "I'm not sure if it's my place, please," Claire whispered, her voice cracking. "I need to see you." She hung up and looked at her mother, heart pounding. Maybe now was the time for her to break the silence. Maybe justice, or at least a measure of truth, awaited. But she couldn't form the words yet, so she said nothing. That afternoon, Claire met Eli at a small cafe tucked away in a less crowded part of the city. The place smelled of freshly baked bread and espresso shots. Claire chose a corner table near the window, wanting a private spot. As soon as Eli walked in, with his slightly disheveled suit and concerned eyes, Claire felt both relief and dread. He greeted her with a gentle hug. "Hey, I got worried when you asked to meet so suddenly. Is everything okay?" She tried to steady her voice. "I'm pregnant. I'm supposed to be safe, but I'm not." The words spilled out in a rush, surprising even her. "Daniel's having an affair," she continued, her throat tightening. "I have proof. Video proof." Eli exhaled slowly. "That's awful." Are you sure you want to do anything with that footage? Because if it's from a hidden camera, there are legal ramifications to consider. Claire nodded. I understand, but there's more to it. She took a trembling sip of water. I gave up my documentary career to support him. We were going to start a family, which we did, but along the way, he took control of our finances without me even realizing it. Now I'm discovering he's siphoned all our joint funds into his tech company, preparing for this IPO, and I'm left with almost nothing. Eli pressed his lips together. A look of concern etched across his face. If Daniel is shifting assets, that means he might have anticipated a divorce or some kind of legal challenge. Claire, you need to protect yourself. She swallowed. I have only one real asset left, these recordings, but I don't want to do anything reckless that could jeopardize me or my baby. Eli leaned forward. Claire, do you remember how strong you were back in college? You documented those cases of corporate cover-ups in that documentary series that won you an award. You brought the truth to light, no matter the cost. A flicker of her old self stirred inside. She remembered the passion, the adrenaline that came from unveiling hidden truths. Then she recalled the moment she and Daniel had started dating. He seemed so supportive of her career at first, but after marriage, he insisted she take on a quieter life. For the baby, he said, for the family. She brushed a tear away. He's planned it all, and I feel so helpless. Eli gently touched her hand. You're not helpless. You still have your instincts, your intelligence, and you have me, if you'll let me help. Claire nodded, the words lodging in her chest. A memory surfaced a year ago. She'd become pregnant the first time. Daniel insisted that she wasn't ready, that they needed to focus on his company. She was vulnerable, and ultimately, she lost that baby to a miscarriage under the cloud of his pressure. That past weighed heavily on her now, forging a sense of betrayal so deep it was almost paralyzing. I can't let him ruin me or our child, she said quietly. Eli's phone buzzed, but he ignored it, focusing entirely on Claire. Have you told your mother? She shook her head. I can't. Not yet. I'm not sure how she'd react. She always suspected Daniel wasn't who he pretended to be. I just don't want to see her disappointment. Eli hesitated, then said, I might know someone who can handle the footage discreetly, keep it stored safely, a digital security expert. But you have to decide what you want to do next. Do you want to confront Daniel, expose him publicly, threaten him? Each choice has consequences. Claire sat there. The cafe sounds fading into the background. Her mind was a whirl with possibilities, each one bearing the weight of her unborn child's future. She closed her eyes. Just help me store it safely for now. Then, I'll decide. Eli nodded, leaning back in his chair. All right. Send the files to the secure folder. I'll make sure no one can tamper with it. But be careful. Claire, you don't know the lengths Daniel might go to keep his secrets from unraveling. A shard of fear lanced through her, but there was also a spark of renewed determination. She thanked Eli, stood up, and prepared to leave. As she pushed open the cafe door, she caught her reflection in the glass. She looked tired, older than her 38 years, but behind the exhaustion was a glimmer in her eye that whispered, "Don't count me out yet." Claire's eyes fluttered open the next morning to find Daniel already gone. No goodbye note, no text. A wave of anxiety hit her. She placed a hand protectively over her belly, feeling the baby stir. Each subtle kick reminded her of the new life growing inside her, a life she had to protect at all costs. Determined to clear her head, she headed to her obstetrician's office for a checkup. The waiting room walls were painted a soft, comforting green. She sank into a chair, scanning the faces of other pregnant women around her, some flipping through magazines, others nervously tapping their feet. A pang of envy hit her. They seemed normal, with caring partners, excited about the future. Meanwhile, her life was unraveling. When Dr. Patel called her name, Claire stood, bracing herself. The checkup started routinely: blood pressure, heart rate, measuring the growing bump. But halfway through, Dr. Patel's expression grew concerned. "Claire," she said gently, "your blood pressure is quite high. I'm also seeing some protein markers in your urine test. We need to watch for signs of preeclampsia." A chilling sense of vulnerability seized Claire. "That's serious, isn't it?" "It can be, but we can manage it. We just need to minimize stress and keep close tabs on your condition." Dr. Patel offered a reassuring smile. "I'll schedule more frequent appointments. In the meantime, please rest as much as you can." Rest. The concept felt laughably unattainable. Claire's heart sank. She left the office clutching a prescription for medication and instructions to stay calm. It was the first real blow, an ominous sign that her health and her baby's was directly threatened by the chaos swirling around her. Back home, she found a curious silence. The penthouse felt too large, too empty. She decided to check their shared bank account, maybe to arrange some finances for medical needs. Logging in, her stomach twisted as she discovered the balance just under $500. That was impossible. Daniel had always maintained they had substantial savings. She scrolled through the transaction history and saw a series of wire transfers to Whitmore Innovations, Daniel's company, large amounts. Draining the account over the last few months, a lump formed in her throat. It wasn't just an affair. Daniel was strategically isolating her from financial resources. This was more than betrayal. It was sabotage. She sank into the office chair, tears threatening again. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. "Sorry I missed you this morning. Big day at the company. Don't worry about the finances. I moved some money around for liquidity. We'll talk soon." Claire wanted to scream. Instead, she saved the transaction records as PDFs, just in case. The second catastrophic punch landed moments later, a notification on her phone about local tech news. The headline read, "Whitmore Innovations nears final IPO approval. CEO Daniel Whitmore credits supportive wife." The accompanying photo showcased Daniel's radiant smile, praising Claire as the backbone of his success. It was a twisted irony. He robbed her behind the scenes while publicly lauding her support. The mixture of anger, fear, and helplessness made her dizzy. She remembered Dr. Patel's warning, "Avoid stress." But how could she, when her life was turning into a nightmare just then? Martha arrived, letting herself in. She saw Claire's tear-stained face and rushed over. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Claire clutched her mother's hand, not sure how much more she could hide. She said, I'm not well. The doctor says I might have preeclampsia." Martha's brow furrowed in concern. "Then we need to get you somewhere calm. This penthouse isn't peaceful anymore. You can come stay with me." Claire shook her head. She had already lost so much of her independence, but Martha's voice grew firmer. "For once, let me help you. You need rest, and that baby needs stability." Claire nodded, swallowing her pride. She rose to pack an overnight bag, her mind churning. Daniel was cutting her off financially, undermining her well-being, and flaunting his success in the media. But she had the footage, 2 damning videos. She had the transaction records. And maybe, with Eli's help, she had enough to push back when the time was right. Yet at this moment, she felt only fear, wearing her down. She was battered by the first 2 blows, her health crisis, and the discovery that Daniel was systematically draining their funds. As she stepped out of the penthouse, she couldn't escape the sense of being cornered. One wrong move, and her entire future could shatter. Claire settled into her old bedroom at her mother's modest suburban house. The room was still decorated in pastel colors from her high school days. It felt oddly comforting, even if the furniture was dated and the bed was too small for her pregnant form. The next day brought a series of phone calls. First, from Dr. Patel's office, confirming they wanted Claire to come in twice a week for blood pressure monitoring. The stress was taking a toll. Second, from a real estate agent representing their penthouse's building association. He politely asked if Claire knew about the intent to lease notice that Daniel had filed. Apparently, Daniel was considering renting out their penthouse, effectively leaving Claire with no permanent home. That was the second major disaster for Claire in as many days. She felt the walls closing in. By relocating to her mother's house, she had unwittingly given Daniel the chance to reclaim the penthouse with minimal fuss. Her possessions, her sense of security, everything was precarious. She vented her frustrations to Eli over the phone. "He's listing our home while I'm forced out. Can he even do that?" Eli sighed. "He's the primary name on the deed if everything was consolidated under the company's trust." Right. She ran a hand through her hair, recalling all those documents Daniel had her sign over the years. Yes, he always said it was for tax benefits. I was naive. A short silence followed before Eli spoke again, carefully. "Claire, do you want to release the footage? Because if you make it public, especially with the IPO looming, Daniel will be discredited. But you risk a legal battle, too." Claire closed her eyes. She wanted justice, but she also had to think about her unborn child. Daniel was cunning. If cornered, he might retaliate in ways she couldn't predict. That evening, as she tried to rest, the third catastrophic blow came. She was half dozing when the TV in the living room aired a breaking news segment. Allegations surfaced regarding Whitmore Innovations' questionable practices. The anchor cited an anonymous whistleblower claiming that Daniel's upcoming IPO was built on manipulated valuations, hush money, and hidden liabilities. A photograph of Daniel appeared on screen. Then, a follow-up photo showed Claire at his side. The anchor added, "No official comment from the Whitmore camp yet. Investors are rattled." Martha turned off the TV, shaking her head. "That man, he's in too deep." Claire's phone pinged. "You did this." "Claire." A text from Daniel. "Don't play games, you can't win." Her hands shook. She hadn't leaked any corporate wrongdoing. Who else could have done it? Her thoughts turned to Vincent Rice, Daniel's longtime competitor, a man Daniel had publicly humiliated years ago. She remembered hearing something about Rice wanting revenge. Could Rice be the whistleblower? Now the entire house of cards Daniel built was trembling, and he blamed her. Claire felt physically ill. She realized the scandal might boomerang onto her, especially if Daniel tried to paint her as a vindictive spouse. Anxiety flared, pushing her blood pressure higher. She stumbled to the bathroom, trying to steady herself. She couldn't let this break her, for the baby's sake. Summoning what courage she had left, she dialed Daniel's number, straight to voicemail. She left a single sentence. "I didn't leak anything, but I'm not going to protect you from the consequences." When she hung up, she knew there was no turning back. She was embroiled in a storm. Her health was at risk, her finances nearly gone, her home in limbo, and her husband possibly on the brink of a major fall from grace. In just a matter of days, she'd been hit with three crushing events: her potential preeclampsia, the financial betrayal, and now Daniel's corporate scandal. Each one hammered her hope, but somewhere inside, a tiny spark of resilience flickered. That night, her mother sat beside her bed, offering a cup of chamomile tea. "You need your strength," Martha said softly, stroking Claire's hair as if she were still a little girl. "I know you'll find a way through this." Claire sipped the tea, tears slipping down her cheeks. She was battered, bruised, but not broken, and she resolved, right then, that she would survive whatever came next, and so would her baby. The following morning, Claire woke up to a sense of determination coursing through her veins. She placed a hand on her belly. "Hang in there, little one," she whispered. "I'm fighting for both of us." Her plan started with a thorough conversation with Eli. They met in his modest law office. Eli guided her through the steps of filing for a legal separation, while also seeking a protective order over any assets that Daniel might attempt to liquidate. Claire felt the stirrings of empowerment. She was finally taking action. Over the next few days, everything seemed to stabilize just a bit like the eye of the storm. The press hounded Daniel about the whistleblower allegations, but no further revelations emerged. The IPO wasn't canceled. It was only delayed. Daniel was too busy juggling crises to focus on Claire, which allowed her to breathe. For a brief moment, she dared to feel safe. Her health improved slightly. Blood pressure down, the doctor noted. Less stress is doing you good. Claire allowed herself a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she could carve out a life for herself and her child without complete destruction. Then came the greater twist. Late one afternoon, Eli called her in a panic. "Claire, my offices were broken into. The server that stored your footage was accessed." She nearly dropped her phone. "Do you still have the files?" "Yes, but someone copied them, and we have no idea who. I checked the logs. Your name was specifically targeted. They downloaded everything." Claire's heart pounded. Her first thought was Daniel, or perhaps someone on his behalf. If the stolen footage ended up in the wrong hands, it could be twisted against her. Then again, it might end up all over the internet, humiliating Daniel, or it could vanish entirely, destroying her best leverage. "Do you think Daniel orchestrated this break-in?" Claire asked, voice shaking. "He has the resources," Eli replied, "but I can't prove anything yet." He paused. "I've already taken steps to back up the files in another secure location, and I changed the encryption. However, whoever took those copies has a head start." Claire collapsed onto her mother's living room couch. The sense of safety she'd felt just hours ago evaporated. If Daniel had the stolen footage, he could preemptively spin the narrative that she was some sort of unhinged, paranoid wife spying on him, illegally diverting attention from his affair to her methods. The fear threatened to choke her. She pressed a trembling hand to her belly, feeling a sudden jolt from the baby, as if the little one was reminding her to stay strong. "How do I fight back?" she muttered, to no one in particular. She realized she had pinned much of her plan on controlling that evidence. Now it was compromised. There was a twisted part of her that almost hoped Daniel would release it, exposing his own adultery to the world. But no, that would be too easy. More likely, he would manipulate it, claim she violated his privacy. That same evening, a single message arrived in her email. No subject line, just an attachment. She opened it hesitantly. It was a heavily edited snippet of her hidden camera footage. The clip showed Daniel seated on the couch, half-dressed, but it was cut to make it look like Claire had invaded his personal space without cause. The text read, "Try explaining this in court." Claire's eyes brimmed with tears of frustration. This was the bigger twist. Not only had her footage been stolen, but it was being weaponized against her. She recalled Daniel's once charming face, the promises he'd made when they exchanged vows, "I will always protect you." She gave a brittle laugh at the memory. Now he was her greatest threat. She curled up under a blanket, feeling lost. There were no easy answers. But a voice inside urged her forward. You have to keep going, because there was no place left to run. Days turned into a flurry of small yet significant steps for Claire. Fear loomed constantly, but she took deliberate actions to reclaim control. With Eli's help, she filed paperwork for spousal support and froze any remaining marital assets that hadn't been siphoned off. The petition cited Daniel's misconduct and potential corporate fraud as reasons to protect her financial stake. While not a slam dunk, it was a start. The court at least acknowledged her pleas, setting a date for a hearing. Claire reached out discreetly to a few reporters she knew from her documentary days. She didn't release the footage, but she hinted at Daniel's personal indiscretions. Some showed interest. Some were wary Daniel had a sterling public image. After all, yet seeds of doubt were sown. A single mother-to-be, betrayed by her high-profile CEO husband, was a compelling story if she chose to reveal it fully. She followed Dr. Patel's advice, taking her medications and resting as much as possible. Her mother hovered protectively, making sure she had healthy meals and minimal stress. Each night, Claire would talk to her unborn baby, telling the child about the mother she hoped to be, a stronger, wiser woman than the one who first fell in love with Daniel's facade. With these quiet moves, she felt a glimmer of hope returning. She was still terrified, but she sensed a path forming. even if it was narrow and fraught with obstacles. Then, out of the blue, Claire received a call from Vincent Rice, the man Daniel had once publicly humiliated. She had never met him in person, but she recognized his voice from media clips. It was deep, confident, a bit cunning. "I'm going to cut right to the chase," Vincent said. "I heard about your situation. Let's just say Daniel's done more than step on my toes. I've got a bit of a vendetta, and I suspect you do, too." Claire's grip on the phone tightened. "I'm not looking for vengeance. I just want security for me and my child." "I understand," Vincent replied. "But sometimes, the best defense is a well-aimed offense. I happen to know the board at Whitmore Innovations is unhappy with the swirling rumors. If I can provide them with concrete evidence, they might remove Daniel as CEO before the IPO hits. That could be your leverage to negotiate a favorable settlement." Claire hesitated. This was what she had always feared, using the footage as a weapon. It felt dirty, yet Daniel had already shown he'd stoop to any level. Vincent pressed on. "I don't need your moral approval. I just need your word that you won't stand in the way if we both move against Daniel. What you do with your personal recordings is up to you. But if you ever decide you want to share them, make sure they reach the right ears." She sucked in a breath. "Let me think about it." "Think quickly," Vincent said. "Daniel's IPO is back on track, and it won't be delayed forever." Then he hung up. Claire set the phone aside, her mind swirling. She felt like she was tiptoeing a razor's edge. On one side, her conscience balked at leaking personal videos for corporate advantage. On the other, Daniel had financially trapped her, stolen her home, and threatened to tarnish her reputation. That night, she told her mother about Vincent's call. Martha frowned. "Do you trust him?" Claire sighed. "Not entirely. But I know Daniel far less than I thought I did. Everyone's playing their own game. I'm just trying to survive." Martha's gaze softened. "Survive first. Yes. But don't lose your soul. Claire, the child in your womb deserves a mother who can live with herself." Claire leaned against her mother's shoulder, tears slipping free. She was battered but quietly rebuilding. And tomorrow, she'd have to decide which path she'd take. Claire's day of reckoning arrived unexpectedly, with an invitation, no, an order from Daniel to attend the IPO launch party. It was to be held on his luxurious yacht moored in the San Francisco Bay, a flamboyant display of his supposed success. The message arrived via a courier, a thick envelope with a gilded invitation, scrawled on a note inside, "Show up, or you'll regret it." Eli advised her to stay far away. Martha begged her not to go, but Claire sensed this was the final battlefield. If Daniel wanted a confrontation, she'd meet him head-on, in plain sight. She arranged for one of the reporters she trusted to be nearby, just in case. The night of the event was crisp, with a gentle breeze rolling off the water. Claire donned a simple but elegant black maternity dress that accented her growing belly. She felt tense but resolute as she walked up the gangplank to the yacht. Lights shimmered along the polished decks, soft jazz music playing in the background. The irony of such a polished facade made her stomach churn. Daniel was there to greet her, wearing a tailored tuxedo and a forced smile. Cameras flashed as soon as he put a hand on her waist, playing the role of devoted husband for the public. Claire wanted to recoil, but she kept her composure, leaning into the performance. If he wanted to pretend, she'd pretend right back. High-profile guests floated around the yacht, sipping champagne. Sienna Hale, the woman from the footage, stood near the bar, wearing a glittering silver gown. She threw Claire a haughty glance and whispered something to Daniel as she passed. Daniel led Claire to the yacht's upper deck. The city skyline glowed in the distance. He guided her to a secluded corner near the rail. The noise of the party faded enough for a private exchange. He faced her, dropping the facade instantly. "I told you not to meddle. Now there's a whistleblower. My IPO almost collapsed. This footage is circulating somewhere. I'm done playing games. Hand it over, or else." Claire squared her shoulders. I don't have the original files anymore, she said calmly, not bothering to hide her anger. They were stolen. But even if I did, I wouldn't give them to you, he scoffed, leaning in close. You realize you're incriminating yourself by possessing those recordings in the first place. And if the footage gets out that I was in my own home, your claims become worthless. You'll look like a crazy, paranoid wife. She swallowed hard. You and I both know you're not the victim here. His eyes glittered with malice. You think a court will believe you? Look around. I'm the golden boy. This IPO is about to make me unstoppable. Then he dropped his voice. You'll never see a dime of it. Claire. Her pulse quickened. She placed a protective hand on her belly and forced herself to stand firm. I don't care about the money anymore. I care about our child, and I won't let you bully me into silence. A mocking smile tugged at his lips. Our child. You mean the one you'll be raising on child support checks if you're lucky? He reached for her arm, but she pulled away. From behind, Sienna's voice cut through the tension. Daniel. She purred. The media is waiting. You should come say a few words. She locked eyes with Claire, a predatory glint in her gaze. Hello, Claire. So nice of you to come. Claire felt an overwhelming urge to slap that smug expression off Sienna's face. Instead, she ignored her. Daniel glanced between the two women, then marched off toward the group of reporters gathered mid-deck, leaving the two alone. Sienna chuckled softly. I'd be careful if I were you. Daniel doesn't like being threatened. I'm not threatening him, Claire replied icily. I'm just finished being his pawn. Sienna stepped closer. She, too, wore a polished facade of confidence, but Claire caught a hint of anxiety in her eyes. You have no idea. Do you? Daniel and I might have fun, but he's not exactly loyal. I've got my own plans. Claire lifted her chin. Good for you. I'm not interested in your petty scheming. The yacht's sound system crackled to life as Daniel tapped the microphone. Spotlights converged on him. He began a rehearsed speech about innovation, courage, and building a brighter tomorrow. The crowd applauded on cue, but a murmur rippled through them as the large LED screens set up behind Daniel flickered unexpectedly. The next moment, an image from the hidden camera footage popped onto the screen, grainy but unmistakable. Gasps erupted. Claire's jaw dropped. She spun to see who was controlling the playback. At the stern of the yacht, a cluster of men in dark suits scrambled, frantically trying to unplug wires. Daniel's face went pale on screen as he realized exactly what was happening. In a panic, someone killed the power, and the screen went black. But not before at least half the guests saw a glimpse Daniel entangled with Sienna. Before anyone could gather themselves, Sienna's voice broke the stunned silence. Did you plan this? Claire's protest died in her throat. She had no idea who had orchestrated this public reveal. Was it Vincent Rice, the scorned competitor? Or was it someone from Daniel's own circle? Daniel jumped from the small stage, fists clenched, scanning the crowd for the culprit. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, all illusions of his perfect life crumbled in front of them. Claire felt her pulse racing. She watched, half in shock, half in relief. This is it, she thought, his moment of reckoning. But something told her the night was far from over. The night ended in a swirl of chaos. Scandalized investors stormed off the yacht. The event broke up before Daniel could finish his speech. Within hours, gossip columns and social media were ablaze with rumors about a shocking video. Word spread about Daniel's alleged affair, overshadowing the corporate success story he tried so hard to cultivate. Claire retreated to her mother's house, physically and emotionally exhausted. Early the next morning, the phone rang. It was a panicked Daniel. You have to fix this, he snarled, voice cracking. They're demanding I step down as CEO. The IPO is on hold again. Maybe canceled. What did you do for once? Claire felt strangely calm. I did nothing. Not this time. He cursed and hung up. Claire exhaled. She had expected to feel triumph, but instead, she only felt weary. Too much had happened, and the next steps were unclear. Over the following week, the fallout was swift. Daniel was ousted from the company board. Stock values plummeted. Sienna vanished from the public eye, rumored to have signed a hush agreement. Investors pivoted their support to other executives, effectively cutting Daniel loose. It seemed like a dream scenario for Claire Daniels' downfall, without her needing to wage a personal war in court. A short statement from Daniel's lawyer trickled out, saying he'd taken personal leave to focus on family matters. Some of the tabloids painted Claire as the aggrieved wife, standing tall after betrayal, especially once her mother let slip that Claire was living with her in the suburbs for the health of the baby. In an unexpected turn, Daniel texted Claire with what seemed like a humble olive branch. "Let's settle this quietly. Name a figure, and we can handle divorce proceedings without any messy public battles. I won't contest custody if you keep the footage private." Claire read the text over and over. The relief that threatened to wash over her was immense. She didn't want a brutal legal war. She wanted peace, stability for her child, and enough resources to restart her life. If Daniel was willing to settle, maybe there was a path forward, albeit a fragile one. She consulted with Eli. "What do you think?" Eli shrugged. "If the money is significant, it might be the best option. You'll avoid a messy trial that could drag your name through the mud. But be cautious. Daniel is cornered. He may not be sincere." Despite the warning, Claire's heart ached for closure. So she agreed to meet with Daniel in a neutral setting, Eli's office. Daniel arrived late, looking disheveled in casual clothes, sporting dark circles under his eyes. Gone was the confident CEO. In front of them, a short negotiation ensued. Daniel agreed to sign over a substantial sum of money from his remaining personal account, enough to secure Claire's future. In return, Claire promised not to publicly release any more footage or details of their marriage. He also relinquished any claim on the baby's primary custody. A part of Claire still hated him for what he did, but as she put her signature on the dotted line, she felt a quiet sense of completion. The personal threat was receding. She could finally focus on her health and the baby. That evening, she went into mild labor false contractions that Dr. Patel called Braxton Hicks. Still, it was a stark reminder of how close she was to bringing new life into the world. Lying in bed, she felt lighter than she had in months, believing she had triumphed. Daniel was toppled. The IPO fiasco was behind her. She was financially secure, and soon she would hold her baby in her arms. Maybe this was her version of a happy ending, but deep inside, she couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Was it truly over, or was there another wave lurking beneath the surface a week later? Claire stood on the back porch of her mother's home, a cool breeze ruffling her hair. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She placed a hand on her now very prominent belly, feeling the life inside her. Despite all the heartbreak, she had found a measure of peace. She believed that, at least for now, she and her baby were safe. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. At first, she ignored it, focusing on the tranquil moment. Then curiosity got the best of her. She unlocked the screen. A single line of text appeared. "You think it's over? Check the attached file." She tapped on the attachment. It was a video snippet, shaky and dimly lit. Daniel's voice, another woman's voice, not Sienna's. The timestamp was recent, recorded only days ago. The context was unclear, but they were discussing legal strategy, forging new financial accounts, possibly overseas. One phrase stood out. "Once the baby is here, we'll make our move." Claire's heart pounded. What move? She felt a chill spread through her body, despite the warm evening air. The final frames showed Daniel smiling cunningly. The woman asked, "And Claire?" He shrugged, replying, "She won't see it coming." Claire's knees nearly buckled. She sank onto the porch steps, eyes wide with alarm. For a split second, she couldn't breathe. Everything she thought she had resolved, every sense of security she felt after that settlement, was now unraveling again. He was planning something, an even bigger betrayal or scheme. He wasn't done with her. Slowly, She steadied herself, feeling the baby move against her rib cage. She pressed a palm to her belly and gazed at the video again, a fire igniting within her. Daniel could play any game he wanted, but she wasn't the same naive woman he once controlled. This new revelation, shocking and ominous, only proved that her fight was far from finished. She clicked off her phone, staring at the darkening sky. A sense of foreboding and fierce determination warred inside her. Whatever came next, she would be ready. In the end, the price of truth is never cheap. She'd lost innocence, trust, and the comforting illusion that love alone is enough. Her wounds were invisible, deep scars etched into her heart, marked by the silent wars fought behind closed doors. Yet from ashes came clarity, a quiet strength born from surviving betrayal, an unspoken courage found only when pushed to the edge. She had fought not for vengeance but for dignity, for a child yet unborn who deserved better than deceit. The past would always whisper reminders of pain, but the future was hers to define, built on lessons hard-earned, victories quietly won, and a love fierce enough to rebuild from ruins. The battles ahead remained uncertain, shadows still lurking at the edges, but for now, she stood unbroken. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting gentle hues across the sky, she gently pressed her hand against her belly, feeling the rhythmic pulse of life inside her. She wondered softly to herself, when everything you believe in crumbles, how far would you go to protect what truly matters?
Elena Rivera sat before the wide glass window of the Rivera Group's penthouse, the night skyline shimmering below her like a sea of cold diamonds. Her hands rested over her 7-month pregnant belly, steadying the tremor that came not from fear, but acceptance. For months she had known. The lipstick stains, the late meetings, the new assistant with 2 perfect smiles. And now, the headline on the tabloid app confirmed it. Billionaire CEO Adrian Rivera seen vacationing in Paris with his secret love. Her phone vibrated. A call from her doctor, reminding her of her checkup tomorrow. Another reminder of the life growing inside her. The only thing that was truly hers anymore. Adrian's betrayal wasn't what shattered her. It was how ordinary it had become. How calmly he'd walked past her each morning, pretending not to notice her swelling belly or the hollow silence that filled their luxury home. That night she didn't cry. She poured herself a glass of water, placed her wedding ring inside it, and left it on his bedside table. No words, no fight, no goodbyes, just silence. As she walked out of the penthouse, snow began to fall, soft and soundless. The same way her love had died. At dawn, she took the first flight out of the city, heading to a quiet seaside town where no one knew her name. For the first time in years, her heart felt empty but free. Lana Cruz stood before the mirror of Adrian Rivera's penthouse, admiring the diamond necklace draped around her collarbone. It wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol of victory. The once assistant had become the woman by his side, and the world finally knew it. Paris was divine, she purred, glancing at the man behind her. Adrian, the billionaire CEO every magazine called untouchable. But now that it's official, what happens to your wife? Adrian's eyes hardened, his jaw tightening. Elena filed for divorce last week. Quietly. No lawyers, no drama. Just gone. He said it flatly, as though the silence of her exit lingered somewhere in his mind. Lana smiled satisfied. So she finally realized her place. She poured champagne, toasting to their future. To us, power. To freedom. But as Adrian clinked his glass against hers, his reflection in the window looked haunted. Behind the glittering skyline, memories flickered. Elena's laughter, her soft goodnights, her small hand over his when she told him she was pregnant. He brushed it off, drowning the thought in a sip of champagne. Yet the taste turned bitter. Meanwhile, across the country, Elena unpacked her suitcase in a modest coastal cottage. The air smelled of salt and new beginnings. She found work in a small design studio, far from headlines and boardrooms. Every night she'd talk to the life inside her, softly like a secret prayer. You're my reason now. Not him. And though she had left without a word, her absence screamed louder than any confrontation. In the quiet luxury of his penthouse, Adrian Rivera, the man who once believed he had everything, began to realize what it truly meant to lose peace. The mistress celebrated her win. The husband drowned his guilt. The wife built her silence into strength. 3 weeks later, Adrian Rivera sat in his glass-walled office, the city sprawling beneath him like a conquered kingdom. The world still bowed to him. The business magazines, the shareholders, the endless meetings that fed his pride. But silence had a way of finding him, even here. Especially here. He reached for his phone out of habit, to text Elena. Then remembered. There was no Elena to message anymore. Her number, disconnected. Her social media, deleted. It was as if she'd vanished from existence. "Sir." Lana's voice broke his thoughts as she entered, dressed in designer silk. "The press wants to feature us as the Rivera Empire's new power couple." He nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. A moment later, his assistant entered with an envelope. This came from Dr. Herrera's office. It's marked urgent. Adrian frowned, tearing it open. His blood turned cold. It was a medical report, Elena's name printed at the top. Complications during pregnancy. High stress levels. Relocation recommended. The words blurred as his chest tightened. His wife, no ex-wife, was out there somewhere carrying his child, and he hadn't even known if she was safe. For the first time in years, he left a meeting mid-sentence. His driver stared as Adrian climbed into the car, slamming the door. "Find her," he ordered quietly. "Now." That night, as he stood before his penthouse window, the weight of his choices hit him all at once. The luxury, the affairs, the pride. All of it hollow. And in that silence, something broke inside him. The man who never cried, who mocked emotions as weakness, felt his chest heave. His reflection blurred as tears fell, slow and disbelieving. Because for the first time, Adrian Rivera realized he hadn't lost a wife. He had lost the only person who had ever loved him without expecting anything in return. Somewhere far away, Elena sat by the sea, painting designs for a small boutique. Her hand rested over her belly as she whispered to her unborn child, "We're almost there, baby. We're going to be okay." Their worlds had split, one wrapped in guilt and gold, the other in quiet peace. But destiny, patient and cruel, wasn't finished with either of them yet. Lana Cruz had everything she once dreamed of: the penthouse, the luxury car, the CEO who once ruled the city. And yet, every night she found herself staring at the empty side of the bed, wondering who he was really thinking about. First she ignored it. Adrian was a man of business. Distant, serious, cold, she could live with that. But now there was something else. A silence heavier than gold. She found him sitting alone in the living room one night, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. "You've been different," she said softly, stepping closer. "Is it her?" He didn't look at her. "Don't start, Lana. Don't start." Her tone sharpened. "You begged me to leave my job, to move in here, to stand by you. And now you can't even look at me?" Adrian finally turned. His eyes weren't angry. They were tired. "Do you even know what she's going through right now?" His voice broke slightly. "She's pregnant, Lana. My child. My blood." Lana froze. "So what? She left you." "She made her choice. She left because I gave her no reason to stay." The admission hung in the air like smoke. Adrian rose, leaving the drink untouched, retreating to his office. Lana stood there, trembling, anger mixing with panic. That night, she scrolled through old news archives, searching for any sign of Elena. But nothing. No photos. No updates. Just silence. It was worse than any headline. Because silence meant control, and she had none. Meanwhile, in the small coastal town, Elena spent her evenings designing baby clothes for a local boutique. The owner, Mrs. Patel, adored her work. "You have a gift, dear," she said one afternoon, smiling as sunlight poured through the window. You don't need to look back anymore. Elena smiled faintly. Some memories fade with time, she whispered. Some just freeze until you stop touching them. As days passed, Lana's world began to unravel. Her calls went unanswered. Her laughter went unnoticed. And one evening when she called Adrian's name from the hallway, she saw him through the open door, looking at a single photo on his desk. It wasn't her. It was Elena, smiling under cherry blossoms, pregnant, radiant, alive. And for the first time Lana understood. She could steal his body, his wealth, his fame, but never his heart. Adrian Rivera had built empires. He'd bought companies, crushed rivals, rewritten contracts with a single phone call. But for the first time in his life, there was something he couldn't buy: peace. Days turned into weeks, and the silence around Elena's disappearance only grew heavier. No one knew where she'd gone. No one had seen her since the day she left the Rivera mansion. His office had turned into a shrine of regret. Her coffee mug still sat untouched. Her laughter still echoed in the corners of his mind. Every night, he'd open his phone and scroll through old messages. Don't stay up too late. The baby kicked today. We're going to be fine, Adrian. He hadn't replied to the last one. Now, he would have given his entire fortune just to hear her voice again. Sir, we traced a payment made to a small clinic in Seaside Bay. His assistant reported one morning, laying down a file. It's under Mrs. Elena Rivera's name. Adrian's pulse quickened. Where is it? 5 hours from the city. A quiet coastal town. He stood, grabbed his coat, and left without another word. Lana called after him from the penthouse hallway, but he didn't turn back. Not this time. The drive was long, the air heavy with rain. As he neared the coast, city noise faded into the rhythm of waves. Every mile closer made his guilt sharper. At a small clinic painted in pale blue, the nurse recognized the name instantly. She's doing well, she said cautiously. But she doesn't want to be found. She said she needed peace. Adrian exhaled, his heart breaking with relief and pain. She's safe, he whispered. That's all that matters. He left a sealed envelope with the nurse. No signature, no note, just a check to cover all her medical expenses, with one message written inside. Tell her, I'm sorry. That night, back in his car, Adrian sat staring at the dark sea. For years he had been the man who conquered everything. But now, as the rain hit the windshield, he finally understood that love couldn't be conquered, only cherished. He closed his eyes and a single tear slipped down his cheek, silent, unseen, and far too late. Meanwhile, across town, Elena held the medical envelope the nurse had handed her. She opened it slowly, her heart trembling. The words, I'm sorry, made her lips quiver. But instead of crying, she smiled faintly. Forgiveness, she realized, didn't mean forgetting. It meant letting go. And she was ready to let go of him forever. The night was stormy, waves crashing against the quiet coastal town of Seaside Bay. Inside a small rented cottage, Elena Rivera clutched her belly, sweat glistening on her forehead. Her due date wasn't supposed to be for another week, but life rarely waited for perfect timing. She tried to reach for her phone, but a contraction hit so hard it nearly knocked the breath out of her. Her vision blurred. Not yet, she whispered to herself, tears spilling as thunder rolled outside. The kind nurse from the clinic, Rosa, arrived minutes later, soaked from the rain. It's time, sweetheart. Just breathe. Hours passed in a haze of pain and determination. There was no luxury suite, no husband holding her hand. Just a flickering candle, the sound of rain, and a woman who had already survived heartbreak worse than death. When the first cry filled the room, Elena's sob turned into laughter. Boy. Tiny, perfect, alive. Moments later, another cry echoed. Another boy. Twins. Rosa smiled through tears. 2 blessings. Both strong. Elena held them against her chest, trembling as warmth flooded her body. My boys, she whispered. You're my whole world now. Outside, the storm finally began to calm. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight streamed through the curtains. The boys slept beside her, one with her soft brown hair, the other with Adrian's deep gray eyes. For a moment, she almost broke again, seeing her past reflected in her children's faces. But then she straightened her back, brushing a kiss over each tiny forehead. "You are not your father's mistakes," she whispered. "You are my second chance." That morning, she signed new papers under her maiden name, Elena Cruz. Within days, she launched a small online store, selling handmade baby products, something she'd always dreamed of but never dared to do. Orders trickled in slowly, then faster, as mothers from all over began to share her designs. Each sale felt like a heartbeat, proof that she was alive, building something real. And as her business grew, so did her strength. She didn't know that miles away, Adrian sat in his office staring at the date on his calendar, the same day their children were born, feeling an ache he couldn't explain. A connection still pulsed between them, unseen but unbroken. Elena looked out at the sunrise, holding her sons close. "You and me," she murmured. "We're going to build a new life. And this time, no one will ever cage us again." The world outside glowed golden, as if heaven itself was welcoming her new beginning. 6 months had passed since Elena vanished from his world. 6 months of headlines, contracts, and meetings that no longer meant anything. Adrian Rivera sat in his high-rise office, surrounded by glass and gold, yet inside he felt like a ghost. "Sir," his assistant hesitated, "the quarterly report." "Leave it," Adrian said quietly, his voice hollow. The empire he had built was thriving, but his soul wasn't. Every achievement felt like ashes in his mouth. He tried to move on. He'd even allowed Lana to stay, but her presence now suffocated him. The woman who once thrilled him with her boldness now grated on his every nerve. "You used to be fun," Lana sneered one night, slamming her wine glass on the marble table. "Now you just sit there staring into space. Are you even a man anymore?" Adrian didn't answer. He simply stood, walked toward the window and whispered, "You wouldn't understand." 'Cause no one did. No one knew what it felt like to have driven away the only person who'd ever truly loved him. Some nights, he would dream of Elena's laughter, soft and warm. Other nights, he'd wake drenched in sweat, hearing phantom cries, of babies he'd never held. Then came the night he saw it. Scrolling aimlessly through business news. His eyes froze on a small article headline. "Seaside Cradle. Local mother's handmade brand touches hearts worldwide." The photo below showed a young woman with long brown hair and 2 toddlers on her lap, both boys about 6 months old. Their eyes shone like tiny mirrors of his own. His hand trembled as he clicked the link. It was her. Lena. The article praised her strength, her journey, her resilience. It spoke of how she'd started from nothing, built something beautiful, and inspired countless single mothers around the world. For a long time, Adrian couldn't breathe. He wanted to drive to her to see her, but something inside him stopped him. Maybe guilt. Maybe the knowledge that he didn't deserve to stand in that light anymore. Instead, he sent an anonymous donation, enough to expand her business, open a physical store, hire workers. No name, no message. Just support. He watched quietly as she rose higher, stronger, brighter, without him. Lana noticed the distance, and anger began to twist inside her. "She's gone, Adrian," she spat one night. "You're pathetic for still caring." Adrian turned to her with a calmness that chilled her. "You're right," he said softly. "She's gone, and that's why I'll never forgive myself." And for the first time in years, Lana saw tears in the eyes of the man who once thought he owned the world. Adrian Rivera, the billionaire CEO, was no longer untouchable. He was broken. And the woman he'd tried to destroy had become his redemption. 2 years later, the city buzzed with excitement over the annual Rivera Foundation Charity Gala, an event so grand it drew every major name in the business world. For the first time since Elena left, Adrian Rivera would be making a public appearance as the foundation's host. But there was something different about him now. His once arrogant smile had softened. The sharp edge in his eyes had dulled into quiet reflection. Meanwhile, across town, Elena Cruz adjusted the collar of her elegant silver gown in the mirror. Her brand, Seaside Cradle, had been selected as one of the charity partners for supporting single mothers, an honor she hadn't expected. When her assistant mentioned the sponsor's name, Rivera Foundation, her chest tightened, but she didn't back out. Not this time. This isn't about him, she told herself softly, her hand brushing over the tiny silver bracelets on her son's wrists. This is about what we built. The gala sparkled with chandeliers, laughter, and soft piano music. When Elena entered, heads turned, not because she was famous, but because she carried herself with the quiet grace of someone who had survived the storm and learned to dance in the rain. Adrian stood at the front, delivering his speech. True success, he said slowly, his voice steady but raw, isn't about wealth. It's about the lives we've broken and learned to rebuild. Then he looked up and froze. Across the room she stood. Lena. His breath caught, his words faltered. For a moment the crowd vanished, the lights dimmed, and there was only her. She met his gaze calmly. No hate, no anger, just a quiet, unshakable peace. After the speech, he approached her slowly, almost afraid she'd disappear again. Elena. His voice was barely a whisper. She turned to him with a polite smile. Mr. Rivera. He flinched at the distance in her tone. You look happy. I am, she said simply. Happiness doesn't always need permission. He wanted to fall to his knees to beg forgiveness, but her eyes told him she'd already moved beyond that chapter. Then two little boys ran up, their laughter filling the hall. Mama, they called, clutching her gown. Adrian's heart nearly stopped. Twins. His twins. For a second he couldn't speak. His throat closed as one of them looked up, those unmistakable Rivera gray eyes staring back. Elena knelt, fixing one boy's tie. Say hello, darlings. This is Mr. Rivera. He helped host the event. He smiled weakly, hiding the quake in his chest. You have beautiful sons. Her eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. Yes, I do. As she walked away, Adrian stood frozen, his heart both breaking and healing at once. For the first time he saw the truth. She didn't need him anymore. But she had become everything he once prayed she'd be. And somehow, that was enough. Lana Hastings had always believed that beauty, power, and proximity to money could protect her. For 2 years she had paraded herself as Mrs. Rivera in public, living off Adrian's wealth while he drowned in guilt and silence. But karma, as they say, never forgets an address. It began with whispers, investors pulling out of her luxury fashion line, rumors of embezzlement, scandals over unpaid taxes. Her empire, built on greed, started to crumble. One morning, Adrian entered his office to find his legal team waiting. Sir, we've discovered unauthorized withdrawals from the company account. The transactions lead back to Ms. Hastings. He leaned back in his chair, emotionless. Freeze her assets. File the charges. Are you sure, sir? Yes, he said coldly. It's time she learned what loss feels like. When Lana arrived at the office later that day, her signature perfume filled the air, but her usual confidence was gone. Adrian, this is ridiculous, she snapped. You can't do this to me. I can, he replied quietly, eyes burning with the weight of everything she'd helped destroy. You took what wasn't yours, my name, my company, my peace. You wanted the title. Now live with its consequences. For the first time, Lana's face cracked. You're doing this for her, aren't you? That pathetic woman and her brats. Adrian's voice dropped to ice. That pathetic woman gave me everything I never deserved. And those boys, he paused, pain flickering in his eyes. They're my sons, my legacy, the only part of me worth saving. Security escorted her out. Cameras flashed as reporters swarmed, shouting questions about the Rivera scandal. Lana's world collapsed in front of the same public she'd once seduced with lies. Meanwhile, Adrian didn't celebrate her fall. He just felt empty. Justice wasn't victory. It was closure. That night, he drove back to the coast. 4 hours, he sat near the sea, the same waves that once carried Elena's healing whispers. He had built a kingdom of steel and money, but it had taken losing her to realize how fragile he truly was. From his car window, he watched the sunset melt into gold. "Elena," he whispered into the wind, "you were the light I buried. But I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to face the dark again." The next morning, the headlines exploded. Lana Hastings arrested in financial scandal. Rivera Group clears name. Adrian Rivera steps down as CEO. Announces new foundation for single mothers. The world gasped. The ruthless billionaire had traded his empire for a cause born from guilt and love. But to Adrian it wasn't loss. It was the first honest step toward redemption. The coastal air smelled of salt and jasmine as Adrian parked outside a small boutique with a white wooden sign that read, "Seaside Cradle, handcrafted with love." He stood there for a moment, frozen, watching through the glass window. Inside, Elena laughed softly as she helped a customer, her long hair tied back, a glow of peace around her. 2 little boys ran between shelves, their tiny footsteps echoing, full of the innocence he had once crushed without realizing it. His throat tightened. He had faced boardrooms, wars of business, and public humiliation, but never had he felt fear like this. When she finally noticed him standing there, her smile faltered. For a second, time stopped. She stepped outside, crossing her arms. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Adrian said quietly. "But I had to see you. To see them." She hesitated. "They don't know who you are." "I don't expect them to," he said. "I don't want to take anything away from you, Elena. I wanted to thank you. For raising them, for surviving, for doing what I couldn't." Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. "You don't need to thank me, Adrian. You just need to be better than the man who left me." He nodded slowly. "I'm trying." He handed her a folder. "I stepped down as CEO. I started a foundation in your name, for single mothers who need help. No press, no attention. Just something good." Elena opened the folder, her fingers trembling slightly. Inside were papers, photos, and a simple note. "For every mother who ever had to rebuild alone, because of men like me." She looked up at him, speechless. Before she could respond, 2 small voices interrupted. "Mama, who's that?" Her sons stood by the door, one holding a toy car, the other clinging to her leg. Elena knelt beside them. "This is Mr. Adrian. He helped us with the new store." Adrian crouched down, smiling gently. "Hey, little men. You must be very brave to help your mom every day." The boys giggled, one offering him the toy car. He took it with trembling hands, a symbol of innocence, of a chance he thought he'd never have again. Elena watched silently. For the first time, she didn't see the man who'd betrayed her. She saw a father trying to make peace with his ghosts. When he stood to leave, she said softly, "You don't have to disappear again." He paused, stunned. "You'd let me stay." "Not as my husband," she said gently, "but as their father. If you truly mean to change, start there." Tears welled in his eyes as he nodded. "That's all I've wanted." As the sun dipped over Seaside Bay, Adrian knelt again, not as a CEO, not as a man seeking forgiveness, but as a father meeting his sons for the first time. And for the first time in years, Elena smiled, not out of pity but peace, because she realized forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was freedom.